Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast. I'm Chris Eggett, the editor of the magazine, and today I'm joined by Charlie Pettit, the online editor of the magazine. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Some people might not know who you are, so I suppose you could start by introducing yourself.
I could. So, as you say, I'm Charlie Pettit. I'm the online editor. I'm relatively new, COVID dependent, how we discuss that. So, what all that means is you may not have seen my face, but I'm around. I'll be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and newly on TikTok as well. So you're welcome to join us on all of those platforms.
Yeah, so Charlie looks after mostly the news on the website.
Yeah, news for websites, here and there reviews, keeping in contact with everybody, keeping you updated with what's going on. That's all sort of under my jurisdiction. That's where you'll be finding me.
Yeah, and also community outreach and stuff like that. So if you get a reply you don't like from a social media channel of ours, it was probably mine. So,
I have been blaming it on you. That's fine. Anytime there's kickoff, it was Chris, not me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not me.
That's quite right, and that's the way it should be. So today we're just going to have a little chat about a bit of news, and then we're going to talk about issue 45. Which is the upcoming issue, or the issue that's just come out, depending on when you're listening to this.
Cool things keep happening.
So would you like to start us off, Charlie, with a bit of exciting news?
I would. I'll tell you what. I'll start it off by asking you a question. How much would you pay for a single Pokemon card?
I don't know. I mean, £1.
£1. I mean, you're nearly at where the highest Pokemon card ever sold is at, but you may have to come up just a smidge. So in America, we have recently seen a Pokemon sold for $90,000.
That's many dollars. Which one was it?
Many dollars. Well, okay, this is where we get the mouthful. So it is the Pokemon Super Secret Battle #1 Trainer Promo Hologram card.
Okay, I don't know which one that is.
What do you mean? I thought everyone knew. No, so it's a very elusive card, which is obviously why the cost of it is so high. And there are only, in theory, 7 of them that have ever been produced or that can be tracked. And the only way you could get one was winning a regional tournament in Japan in the 90s, late 90s. Once you won that, you achieved this card. This card would then enter you into the battle of all 7 of you in a secret location that was only determined once you had the card.
That's pretty cool.
So quite cool, very elusive as well. So obviously this is why it's so popular. It's obviously in Japanese, so you can't necessarily read what's on the front, but it basically invites you to the tournament in Tokyo. But would you pay that much for a Pokemon card?
No, not really. No, absolutely not. I barely sleeve any of my cards, so I'm a bit of a heathen anyway.
There, maybe more.
Yeah, exactly. It's, yes. We talked to Wassy a few weeks ago about sort of Pokemon cards and all that sort of thing. And
as soon as this came out, I thought of Wassy, and because the person that bought it was not named, I did wonder if it was Wassy.
Yeah, it could have been. It's weird that these things go for this much money. But I suppose it's just this is the collector side of trading cards that I don't quite understand just yet.
I think you start with sort of an emotional value, don't you? Or you get a couple and you get excited, and you get emotionally invested, and then suddenly spending this sort of money is reasonable. Presumably, this person has that kind of money to spare, because I think if I spent 90,000 on something, there'd be household arguments as to why. But it is. I mean, I went down a whole sort of rabbit hole of researching then there's different versions of mint, so it's not just the case that you can have a decent card, a mint card, and a ultra mint card. This is a PSA Gem Mint 10 grade.
Yeah, but they sort of seal it in a plastic box, so that's beyond just sleeving the card. That's just like fully encased for forever, never to come out again.
Yeah, and I think these people must have known the value of it when they got them, because you can't imagine keeping a card for that long and it being in that good a condition without fading or something like that. But also there is another copy that is the same. Actually, there's more. There's 6 of the 7 that they're aware of are all this same quality, the same grading. So I think people must have received them and gone, this is brilliant. I will keep this for 10 years and make a fortune on it later.
Yeah, I guess you know that if you know there's only going to be 7 of you in the tournament.
Yes. Yeah, might as well. I mean, it's not the same as my desperate search for a shiny Charizard, which
No, it's not. No,
never
no,
came to fruition.
no.
So,
But
I still would.
I assume the Charizard's more fun, but yeah, I digress.
It's a cool one. That was when it came out. I remember being very excited by that. That and a Pikachu. What more could you need?
Yeah, that's about the level I'm at. Cool. And I think we've got some prize news as well.
Big prizes, all of the prizes, because Spiel has been announced. So we have possibly the biggest game awards for the...
Absolutely the best and biggest, or at least the most important award in gaming, definitely.
The Spiel is what I'm going to go with. So with that, we have the winner, which was Pictures.
Which beat My City and Luna Nova, that's it. And so we did a feature on My City a couple of months ago, and it looked. I honestly thought that was going to be the winner, because it's sort of the way legacy games have kind of turned up everywhere these days, and it's kind of we're at a point now where we're far enough away from pandemic legacy, and Gloomhaven's obviously been around for long enough that it's seeped into like mainstream gaming culture, and this could have been a really good example of that, coming forward, and it'd be a nice sort of nod from the jury towards that, because the game itself is very simple. My City is it's lay some tiles, score some points based on the tiles you lay, and you're told what order to lay them on by a deck of cards. So I'm quite surprised that that Pictures won. Pictures is by Christian Stower and Danielle Stower.
Yes, and I think I agree with you that when I spoke to people about the Spiel or we ran polls, the expectation was generally that My City was probably most likely to win.
Yeah.
I didn't see much on Pictures.
I saw almost nothing on Pictures. I think our poll came out that Luna Nova was going to win. I think
Luna Nova was on Twitter, and I believe it was My City on Facebook.
Yeah, okay.
But there were a lot of comments that people hadn't been able to play those games yet, and they
true.
to English and things like that. So they were sort of taken with a pinch of salt, but Pictures sort of came from behind a little bit. But then I think looking at them, I wonder if that's possibly the most family friendly one in a very typical way.
Yeah. So I suppose we should sort of describe what Pictures is for people who haven't actually played it or seen it anywhere. It's a party game where you have a grid of cards with pictures on. They all look a bit stock imagey in a way. Not being rude, just that it's just kind of
that's deliberate, not an insult.
No, exactly, it's deliberate, and it's you might expect I think we're kind of used to the kind of pseudo realist painting style of like Euro games and stuff like that, or the sort of D&D Magic the Gathering style fantasy as just the way we see our games. So to get something which is just like, hey, it's a picture of a real place, it's just a photo, like it's an actual photo, it's kind of weird. They get laid out on a grid, and then each of us around the table will take a token from a bag, and it will tell us which element on the grid we'll be picking up, we'll be trying to represent. So be like C1 or something like that. You'll know that that's the picture you're going to try and represent, and the way you represent it depends on your position on the table. But these items rotate round, and so there's things like 9 coloured blocks, which are your usual resource tokens in most Euro games. You arrange them in a way that makes it look kind of similar to the picture you're trying to represent. So it's really, really abstract. Another thing you might be doing is you might be using 4 twigs and 3 stones to represent the picture you're trying to represent. Equally, there's some like wooden blocks. There's like a shoelace and things like that. So you're sort of taking like a real picture and then making like an absolute abstraction of it. That's like the general thing about it. And I suppose it's kind of like a really like hampered version of Pictionary or something like that.
Yeah, when I read through sort of the description of it, because it's not been one I've been able to play, it struck me as code names, because of those stock images, from what I was reading, that there are multiple ones that are just similar enough that might catch you out when you're trying to pick which one
there's definitely the danger of that. Yeah, I mean, it's not competitive in that way. As Codenames, but it's got that sort of that chance that you're going to misinterpret how other people present things, but you want people to guess what you're creating rather than only your side guessing, for example. So, and because there's no team element to it, but yes, yeah. So it's a sort of like like an honest attempt to interpret. It's a waterfall or something, but you've only got a shoelace to represent a waterfall. How do you tell people that you're going to do that? So
with great.
Yeah. I mean, it looks quite tricky. It looks quite fun. Again, I've not had a chance to play it yet either. But yes, we will hear all about that in not the upcoming issue, but the following issue. In the All The Jahres column that the wonderful James Wallace does.
This one has been a really big one for him, hasn't it? Because it's now time that we start looking back through all of the ones that James Wallace has done for his column.
Yeah, so James has been writing about the Spiel des Jahres for 5 years, something like that. And now we're at a point where he's kind of caught up with the 30-something titles. 36 titles, something like that have won the award. So we did a special in the upcoming issue about he sort of gave an overview of all of the really an overview of what the prize has become, because you look at some of the early defining winners and they kind of represent different times in like hobby gaming, like different turns in the industry, and then sort of later on you find that games become lighter and lighter that win the competition. So we've got a whole timeline of every single Spiel des Jahres winner with James's verdict, whether it's still worth playing today, whether you should go seek it out.
I like as well that they include the odd witty comment that we had from James, just to get a little bit light, but he's very on the mark.
Yeah, it's James is a very funny writer, and this following column will be his last for the magazine. So which is very sad because he's off to Green Games.
One of those things where you can't be sad for him because he's doing something epic, but we can be sad that we're not going to have him anymore. Yeah,
it's very sad for us because one of the main pleasures in my job is to read the jokes before everyone else does. So
editor packs.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's almost like the most useful All The Jahres we've had because it is all of them, except for the one that's about to be crowned, or has just been crowned, which will be the following column. But it's one of those ones you can just look through and you just know if you've missed them from your collection. If you're sitting there looking at your collection, feeling like I miss a certain kind of game. I feel like I've got gaps in this collection. I feel I want to improve my the kind of like heavy literature of my my board game collection, which is not true. A lot of games are very light, and obviously it's a family prize, so they're all very accessible. But it's great to look through and say, yeah, it's great. I'm glad I missed that one, or indeed, I need to go pick up this possibly forgotten gem of the prize.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I found a lot of it interesting to see the ones that I had and then the ones that preceded it and went after it. In terms of, James talks quite a lot about how the award changes. So each year what they're looking for changes a little bit, what they're reacting to changes a little bit. And that was interesting seeing, I liked this one. Did that mean that this one won?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't think that meant that this one did. So it's a really interesting read. It's quite a comfortable read as well. It's a nice one to flick through. One
of the things I like the most about this issue is the cover.
It is a great cover.
So, which is D&D Mythic Odysseys of Theros feature, which is we talked to the designers of the game about the new source book, which is a kind of like, I keep saying crossover, but it's kind of a reinterpretation of Magic the Gathering, or a world of Magic the Gathering, which is Theros itself, which is a Greek mythology themed like setting for your D&D campaigns, and there's all sorts of weird fun stuff you can do in it, like as all Greek myth will, kind of works, the underworld is like a real place that you can go to and hang out in.
Yep.
You might not want to particularly,
but the option is there.
but the option is there, yeah. And there's sort of like nice sort of interactions with the gods. Gives the GM lots of scope as well for like using the gods as tools in the game. Because even if you don't want to follow a god or be the chosen champion of a god, the god can still decide that you are, you don't have like the power in that relationship, and because they're sort of petty individuals, the gods in themselves, it gives like lots of scope for very silly things. Also, there's a whole fabulous table of omens and things in the book, so you can have. I think there's one I mentioned in the article, which is something like so Heliod is like the Helios style god of the sun kind of thing, and so one of the omens you can have for that is just like the sun blinks, which I think is a really it's like an interesting just like bit of language to kind of leave out for your players, so you should be able to get a message from these sort of really ominous omens being laid out by the GM. So the tools in it are really interesting, and it's a big silly source book in a lot of ways.
I love this. I love when they pick up on, you described it as the pettiness of the gods. It's exactly that. I love that, because that's all. Everybody knows Greek myths and things, but we never really drill down on how ridiculous some of their decision making is. But to then throw that into a game where you need to react to some of that ridiculous decision making just sounds like a world of fun.
Yeah. It seems like a really good setting, and it's also like really nice and flexible. So Wes Schneider, one of the designers, he commented that it might be the best setting to do a version of Star Trek.
Ooh,
because it's kind of a really good setting for like get on a boat, go island to island, because it's based on Homer's Odyssey in some ways. It's like that's the general thing. You've got kind of a vague Greek peninsula and islands, and so you can go island to island, crashing here and there, getting knocked off your boat by some gods or something like that, or you land somewhere and it turns out that the whole city that's built on this island is actually on the back of a kraken, that sort of thing. Normal stuff, but it lets you do Monster of the Week, which is so that's just like that's he said Star Trek, but he could have said Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? So it's just like throwing out.
Does already exist, but yes. I've not tracked down a copy.
So it seems like a really interesting setting for that sort of stuff. So that's our cover for this coming issue.
I'll be interested to see what comes back from that in that case. With that much sort of freedom available in it, what are people going to do? What mashups are we going to see that use their stylings? I think that'll be interesting in itself, let alone how cool the game sounds.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because we've also got a review of Soulbound, which is the new Warhammer RPG, which is a similarly god bashing fighting type thing, where you
god bashing,
yeah. Well,
when they're petty and you just want to get one up on them.
Well, yeah. Although they're less petty there. They're just more. You in Soulbound, you play these like incredibly powerful people right from the start. So you start off as like the equivalent of like a level 6 D&D character. So you start off like well on your way to you start off throwing fireballs and things like that and flying and everything, right? And my understanding of it, the play of this game, is that you end up kind of bumping into. You'd think that'd make things boring, just being powerful straight away. But the idea is that you're going to also you're going to run into like things that are beyond the scope of your powers, or the GM can just go absolutely wild and throw thousands of things at you. Or whatever they want at you. It doesn't matter. They can be as brute as they like, because actually, the whole thing is you're very powered up for the whole thing. So we've got two really good godly RPGs in this issue.
Nice. The Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast is supported by Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings.
Conquest breathed new life into rank and file miniature war games with its own gritty fantasy world and fast-paced game system. Check out their quality plastic regiment and resin character ranges at www.para-bellum.com and use Conquest11 as a promo code to get 15% off.
I can talk a favourite.
Go on then.
I am ever the fan of a cardboard manifesto, which is basically us asking people to tell us stuff that annoys them. And there's something a little bit Heat magazine about it, and I can't help but be drawn to it every week. Every month, I should say.
I didn't know that's the vibe we were going for, but...
But in the same sort of way, I'm like, oh, what don't we like this week? Although not necessarily what don't we like, it's more, what can you change?
Just for the people who haven't read the magazine recently, it's a column which allows people to... it's basically an opinion column that allows people to actually exert their fullest feelings about... It could be anything. It could be anything from like we should have more diverse board games to like we should stop using dice in RPGs, which is slightly controversial. Or if you're like me, it's like the smallest hill on which you will die, which is for my one was like we need better box inserts.
I mean, yes, we do.
Yeah. It's always very pleasing when you see a good box insert. But yes, so what do we have this month?
So this month we have Alex Sonic-Kina talking about simple games and whether simple games means bad games, which is what we're coming to the terms of saying. So quite often we're like, it's a simple game, it's a small game. And we assume that means that therefore it's not a good game. And that's never the case. So I quite like those smaller games are fantastic. So she gives a ton of examples. So things like King Domino. I think she mentioned Code Names as well. Those sort of games that, yes, they're simple, but why is simple bad? Why can't we still just enjoy those games? Which I think all very valid points. She says it a lot more succinctly than I have done there, which is why it's worth reading. But I would recommend, and I would fully agree. I think I looked at my copy of Code Names earlier today and thought I should play that more because we always have fun when we do, but it's been pushed to the back because there's that many big box games in front of it. Yeah,
it's very easy to get drawn in by like large amounts of plastic or like
shiny things.
A really more complicated dice. Engine.
The more dice that are in a box, the happier I am.
I know. Well, that is true. Actually, I'm the same most of the time. So, like. We're often looking for like this huge immersion, in a world and like world building and all this sort of stuff. But actually, smaller games or elegant games, small games that have sort of simple rules or very easy to follow rules or very easy to pick up rules often have a great deal of depth in them because you can very quickly get to a higher level of mastery.
Yes.
And so, which is kind of like the which you get that with a lot of like abstract games, A lot of abstract games rely on the idea that you're going to play them 400 times. And by the 400th game, you're you're absolutely buzzing about the idea of doing a slightly different set of moves to the ones you did last time. So it's a really good piece. It's a really good piece. It's, more recently, I have come to sort of a sense that I am looking for a feeling like I had when I first played something like Carcassonne or something like that, which is, that's like, I can't remember who said it to me, it might be Ellie Dix. She said, I don't think anyone's forgotten how to play Carcassonne after the first time they were taught it. No one's forgotten how to do that, but nearly everything else, any big box game, you're going to have to go back to the rule book to check. There's just something really nice about these games that we kind of like often just push them to the side. There's so much new stuff out there, and the cult of the new is so compelling.
Yeah,
it's hard not to like get drawn in by all that when instead you could sit down and just play some like nice, simple, old-fashioned gateway games.
Yeah, I do think sometimes with the newer games that I've been playing recently, I've found that it's almost a fight to get to the enjoyment. I have to get past that huge bump of rules that I need to try and understand, and every step needs to be perfectly calculated, and then also I need to move 10 other characters at the same time and they need to do something in response to me doing something else. all of which I have to learn and try and remember, and you have sort of like a 10-minute headache before it all clears and it all makes sense and everything's easy. Whereas you can just pull out Dobble, for example, and just sit and play Dobble. There's like you say, you don't forget. I think one of our cardboard manifestos previously, forgive me because I can't remember who said it, was talking about how Monopoly was actually one of the best or most successful games for us, because
I think that was James Wallace again.
I think it was a Wallace one. Yeah. And he's right, is that we all know how to play Monopoly, but we don't play it, which is fine because there are hundreds, thousands, millions of other games to play. But we need to give ourselves permission just to enjoy the games that we enjoy and to be allowed to revisit them just for the sake of enjoyment.
And we may be slightly jaded for having reviewed so many games. You know, we might be in a position where we've reviewed so many games that we have fatigue. I mean, other people may be, or slightly more casual players than those who listen to this podcast might think we're being very silly in having to having to say this at all, because they're like, they still love playing Catan. Although I do remember I spoke to Ulrich Blum, the creator of the or designer of the Minecraft.
Yes.
And he in the interview, I don't think I ended up in the article itself, but he's saying something like he remembers. This is how all my interviews go. We have a normal conversation, and then we get to some point where we say, "So, what do you think of the state of Euros at the moment?" And
your interviews are very different to mine.
Yeah, well, and he said, see, he was at a games night somewhere, and one of his friends said, like, they've finished whatever big game they were playing, some big and brain burnery, and they said, "Should we just have a quick game of Catan?" And he was thinking, 10 years ago, people could not have said that.
No,
because because Catan was more than enough for everyone. Yeah.
I like that it's almost like a palate cleanser.
Exactly. And
that's what we should consider these games. Even like intersperse our big box games with a little palate cleanser, and then on to the next course.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's going to make people. If you're putting a game of Catan between every other game, I think you're going to start judging those other games quite a lot harsher, because it's not because Catan's still very good.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget how good they are until you go back and look at them.
Another little piece in the magazine this month is Massive Darkness 2, which is just about to go to Kickstarter. Should be going to Kickstarter as the magazine hits your doormat. So
this is very exciting news.
It's a pretty good preview. We get lots and lots of information out of it. I'm not actually going to say loads about it, because the Kickstarter's not live just yet. So if this goes out before the Kickstarter goes live, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But we should be safe for the actual magazine. But yes, you I think you were about to tell us about your favourite part of the interview.
Yeah, there's a really, so the whole thing is really interesting in how they took the original Massive Darkness that everyone was in love with and had to try and build something different out of it. But the bit that I love about it is they talk so much about feedback. They talk about how they saw the comments that people made on Facebook posts, they saw the complaints that people had, and they built that then into how they fixed the next game, which I think is how game design is veering, especially when there's an additional one. I've watched a similar sort of thing happen with the Resident Evil board games, where the developer is very interactive with comments on Facebook and discussions and trying to say, well, what is it you don't like, or what is it that doesn't work? And by the sound of things, the things that they've described, they're on the money with Massive Darkness 2 in terms of, we didn't like this, but you know what, we checked what you didn't like, and we fixed this bit and we fixed that bit.
I suppose I can share a few examples of that. So they're adding campaign play in properly, which is a super exciting addition to the game, because the previous Massive Darkness community thought the first game sort of lacked in terms of cohesive campaign play. You could just sort of chain missions together, but it didn't feel right.
Yep.
And so they've added some new stuff there, and also they simplified the game in lots of little ways that are kind of things you'd end up doing anyway when you're playing Massive Darkness. So just things that kind of like taking everyone's house rules and shoving them in the game just to tidy things up. So there's like there previously there would be like multiple roles for monsters, and they've kind of put all the roles together in one big role, for example, for the monsters. So you don't have to do like more monster management than you require.
Much better, I think.
It's almost certainly better, yes. Yeah. There's a question of like how much effort do you want to put in to looking after the things that are killing you.
There's a certain amount of fatigue with doing that as well. Like,
absolutely, yeah. So we talked to Tristan Hall about solo games, and we sort of touched on this subject, and he was sort of saying, you don't want to be in a position where you're fiddling about too much with your opponent's deck or whatever else it might be, especially in like solo games or any kind of enemy AI. You want it to just be super simple. And this is the thing where every game designer doing a solo mode or designing enemy AI should just let them cheat.
I think I always find that a difficult part with solo gaming is if there's something that's too complex, I can be prone to just cheat a little, just to smooth out the process.
It's a big question actually. Are we allowed to cheat in solo games?
Who judges us but ourselves?
Exactly. Is that maybe we should judge ourselves more harshly?
Or I can just claim it's in character as a rogue and just leave it at that. It was all intentional.
That's true. Cool. So I think we're going to maybe have a little chat about some of our favourite reviews as well.
Yes. I have Starcadia Quest, but Showdown. And it's a little bit of a back and forward review because it's a if this, then that. So...
This is an expansion of for Starcadia, right?
Yes. So... If you're not familiar with them, you have your Arcadia Quest games, which were very popular, and then from that you then had Starcadia Quest, which was obviously the space expansion from Call Mini or Not. So they come with pretty epic miniatures as well, and there's been expansions that follow the same format as Arcadia Quest. So Arcadia Quest had pets, Starcadia Quest had robots. Then they bring out Starcadia Quest Showdown, which is the one that I played for this and which I've reviewed inside it. Now, I love it, but it is only any good if you've got Arcadia Quest. It is so clever because what it does is it says, right, fight these characters against each other. And fighting in Starcadia Quest is one of the more fun parts because you're constantly trying to shoot this evil robot and evil person and whoever else and even each other. And this is when you get to go head to head. It's sort of like team deathmatch. Right. Put you in an arena and see what happens. But it gives you all of the cards that you need to translate Arcadia Quest into a Starcadia Quest format. Mm-hmm. So then you can play your Arcadia Quest miniatures against your Starcadia Quest miniatures. Glorious. I think this is an absolutely wonderful idea. Difficulty being, I do not have Arcadia Quest. Therefore, not the best expansion for me. It's not listed as necessary. They say you need either Arcadia Quest or Starcadia Quest to be able to play it. And I had Starcadia Quest, but not also Arcadia Quest. So if I had it and I knew everybody else had it, it would be right up there. Yes, play it, buy it, go out. It's brilliant. Because it doesn't require you to have it. Otherwise, it's just a little bit of an extra new map, which you could make up yourself, and sort of rules on timings, I think, from memory. Which again, if you wanted to play those rules, you'd just play them on the boards that you already have. But very clever, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big question we always have about expansions when we review them, which is like the real question isn't like, is it good? Because usually people know whether they like the original game or not. But it's like, Is it necessary?
Yeah. Does it add anything?
Yeah. Does it turn this game from a just like an average game into something fabulous, or does it just add some unnecessary bits that you kind of think, oh, well, that was kind of interesting, but I'm not sure I would have missed not playing it. They're the questions we ask.
I think that's the frustration with this, is that I can appreciate that it could have upscaled the two games. Yeah. It could have made it an epic showdown, which is exactly the title. But on the basis of I didn't need those, so I didn't have those, it didn't, which is where it came down in, I think, my rating of it, just for that reason. But I will still sit here and say Starcadia Quest is a great game. Some of the expansions are wonderful. Am I going to go and buy Arcadia Quest and start again? maybe not.
I mean, you recently reviewed another Starcadia Quest expansion, didn't you?
Build a Robot.
Build a Robot, yes. Do you want to tell us about that? Because I think that was a full-throated yes, wasn't it?
That was great fun. So it's a mimic of the Arcadia Quest expansion Pets, from what I'm told. But it's just little robots, but they're customizable little robots that follow you around. It's wonderful. So you end up with genuine plastic miniatures, little tiny miniatures that are swap. You swap this head onto that one to get that one. And as you're going along, you upgrade your robot. So you've got all this, the normal fighting and the normal aggression. And then you're also worried about what your robot's going to do and whether he can help you out as well. Glorious. Honestly, I was surprised at how well it worked. Because when they told me I could mix and match, I was skeptical.
I mean, I haven't actually seen the miniatures, so I'm not sure how they work out. But so is it just swapping heads? Is it just like Lego men?
Yeah, kind of. They're just so tiny. Yeah. I think that's what really baffles me is they're only like 1.5 centimeters tall.
Wow. Okay.
They're easily losable, and I had to keep all pets away from the area to make sure if they dropped on the floor, I wasn't going to lose one. But very cool. I mean, the thing is, cool mini or not, you know you're going to get cool miniatures.
Yeah,
that's
of course.
Pretty much a given. But still, it surprised me, and I liked I had more missions. I had more stuff to do from it. So it didn't end the game for me. It continued it, which I was pretty good. So that was up there as a give it a go, give it a try.
Yeah, almost necessary. So I mean, I've already talked. So the review I'd like to talk about is the Planet Apocalypse review, and I've spoken about this a couple of times already. So maybe people are very bored.
Miniature.
And I painted a miniature of it from on Twitch. So you can find us there on Tabletop Gaming Mag if you want to tune into my occasional series of Chris Can't Paint, where you get to come along and tell me what colour of pink you want to paint this monster.
This was the thing. You did one recently, and when we talked about this sort of Chris Can't Paint as a Twitch logic, because you tell me that you can't paint, I agreed when you struggled to put a frog thing. What was it called?
It's a froghemoth. I've actually given it to a dear friend of mine who makes models.
Well, when you couldn't put it together, I understood why this line was happening, because we didn't even get to the painting. The problem is, you then did this one, and I was surprised that it was very good.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it's quality of the brushes.
So I have asked Twitter for other options for your next one, and we'll report back as to the style in which your next one is painted.
Yes, I mean, I would quite like to have the chat on Twitch come to me with a reference image. And what I'd like is that reference image does not have to be. So, you know, for example, we're sitting here and I've got some of these Planet Apocalypse miniatures here, and this one here is basically a dog with like only half its skin. I'm going to say like 50% skinned dog.
Just so, because you can't see this, it is only a dog in the way that it has 4 legs and potentially a tail. I don't think there's any other similarity with a dog.
Sorry, no, you're quite right. Yes, and it doesn't have a tail because it has like a mouth at the back as well.
Oh, of course.
It's a tongue. It's a tongue poking out. Yeah. So I will actually talk about Planet Apocalypse in a second. Explain all of that. But yes, so maybe I'll be painting the hell dog thing. But chat could maybe send me a picture of whatever they like. It could be like a cream bun. It could be a post box. It could be like an exotic frog. You know,
an exotic frog.
Well, whatever. You know, that dress that was gold or blue, depending how you looked at it? Whatever, like any reference image. And then like we'll use that reference image on the thing we're painting. And we'll try and make it we'll try and make the miniature cosplay the reference image, more or less. So
yeah, this is what I want to see.
Yeah, so we'll give that a go at some point, hopefully, if the next stream people want to come along with a reference image, that'll be quite funny. So, but Planet Apocalypse itself is a Sandy Peterson game, which means so Sandy Peterson is a legendary game designer. He also did level design for Doom and Doom 2, I believe. And so he's sort of got a pedigree in
that's something CV, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. He's fairly legendary. Somewhat involved in Call of Cthulhu. So lots of stuff going on there. And so he's made another Hell game, and most of Centerpiece's tabletop games are giant bits of plastic, which you move about on a board and you make them fight in some way, and that's brilliant. That's what it is. And so this is a game about hell opening up and demons marching towards you in what amounts to a conveyor belt of demons.
Like your sushi, but you don't.
Yeah, and in fact, there is actually it comes with these sort of like semicircular boards. So you can do like there is a setup which is
expecting to be right about that.
Yeah, so you can actually do the Yo Sushi mode, where they're kind of potentially going round and round and round, but that mode's kind of an enhanced mode. That's the only mode I've seen people play on streams as well, because the board is too big to film normally. In the other setup, so that's the only one where you can fit it on a normal camera. So that's the only one I've seen people playing that way. You have to play with like a long shot camera or something like that. Anyway, so it's broken up into like 5 or 6 areas. Movement is you just sort of move 1 or 2 spaces either direction with your heroes. You play at least 2 heroes, and as these tokens that represent demons invading. As you reveal them by being in the same space as them, you roll a load of dice, and then for pairs on the dice, you chuck down some big ugly monsters, and then you probably try and kill them by throwing some more dice.
Nice.
And that's more or less it. There's loads more to it, but there's like a track where it like ticks up, and every time you go round the track once, you take another track round that then moves the like the big boss monster a bit closer to you, which is even scarier because they bring all the invasion tokens with them and that sort of thing. And there's like a market where you buy power-ups for your character, and that increases like the quality of the dice. So some characters start with just like a D4, where some of the bigger demons need 2 dice, two results of 4 or 4 plus to do that damage to them. So you're like really hampered from the start. And yes, it's about like leveling up and all that sort of thing. But I don't need to tell you any of that, because what it is it's a really fun, and I'm going to say this in the best possible way, it's a stupid game. In a sort of like, in the way that like heavy metal is stupid, by which I mean it's good. And as such, I highly recommend this. I think of the Sandy Peterson games I'm most aware of, I'm probably most aware of Glorantha. That's one I've had a little tinker with. Obviously it's like Cthulhu Wars and all that sort of stuff. But this is not a bad place to start. If you were thinking about getting a big box of monsters, this is not a bad place to start. It was a Kickstarter game at one point, so you're obviously going to sort of have some sort of FOMO of not getting them at the Kickstarter price if you buy them retail. But there's like 3 huge expansions as well, full of other monsters. So you can decide what kind of bosses you want to fight, what 4th level demons, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just incredibly good fun, great to solo as well. It's tactical in a really basic, nice way that doesn't tax you too much, and it's just all about throwing dice and feeling good about throwing dice. And it's really hard as well. It absolutely kicked my ass repeatedly. So yeah, and the characters are all interesting, and yeah, so highly recommend that. And there's a full review of that in the magazine as well.
Nice, sounds great.
I think that's about it for us.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've talked a lot.
So, where can we find us? Where can we find you, actually, more than me?
To begin, we have Twitter, which is @tabletopmag. Then we have TikTok, my new favourite, which is @tabletopmag. Keep things nice and simple. It does upgrade.
Just before we move on to any other services, what kind of thing do you do on TikTok, Charlie?
Oh goodness, very embarrassing things.
There you go. We won't tell anyone any more than that. It's just embarrassing things.
TikTok's great. TikTok's it's a bit of everything. So I tend to put up a mixture of unboxings with various music syncs. So if you're familiar with TikToks and the dances and the songs that you're used to hearing and the puns that you're used to seeing, they're all on there or will be on there at some point, because my draft folder is just getting longer and longer. But it's a dreadful thing. It's all the social media that you shouldn't do, in the sense that the more likes I get, the more I'm like, oh my goodness, I could do another one. So I thoroughly encourage you to join me and duet, or send me suggestions, or give me a shout if you want anything unboxed. It's going to be great. I'm super excited about it, and it's just good fun.
The unboxings are particularly good because they're absolutely manic, because you've got a minute to do it. And so it's just the speed at which things get unwrapped, the description of them can sometimes just be single words, just sort of almost word association with what you're seeing in front of you. And
the problem is, I know exactly which word you mean, because people keep coming up to me and laughing at me for saying that. So I invite everybody else to try and guess which one that is.
So where else can we find ourselves?
We have Instagram, which is tabletop_gaming_magazine, and then Facebook, which is Tabletop Gaming Magazine.
Well, we're also on Twitch, which we mentioned earlier.
Twitch. We have mentioned Twitch, though, so in my defence, however, it is Tabletop Gaming Mag.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. It's been great fun.